Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Welcome to Virtual University. I'm your instructor for the course Training and Development, and this is the 17th session that we are meeting for. उम्मीद है आप लोग ठीक ठाक होंगे, खुशबाश होंगे और खुश मिजाज होंगे. खुशबाश रहने के लिए खुश मिजाज रहना बहुत ज़रूरी है. और हम आजकल ये देखते हैं कि ट्रेंड बढ़ता जा रहा है, लोगों में टेंडेंसी बढ़ती जा रही है, लोग चिड़चिड़े होने लग गए हैं, बदमिजाज हो गए हैं. उसकी वजह क्या है? उसकी वजह यह है कि लोग फ्रस्ट्रेटेड हैं. और फ्रस्ट्रेटेड इंसान कब होता है? जब आपको कुछ ऐसी चीज नहीं मिल रही होती जो आपको चाहिए. उसमें सिचुएशन के प्रॉब्लम्स भी हैं. डेफिनेटली द कंट्री इज गोइंग थ्रू डिफिकल्ट टाइम्स, बट उसमें हमारे पर्सनल प्रॉब्लम्स भी हैं. वी हैव इन्फ्लेटेड डिजायर्स. हमें जो कुछ हमारे पास है उससे ज्यादा चाहिए, जो जिस लेवल पे भी है उसको उससे ज्यादा चाहिए, और इस वजह से हम फ्रस्ट्रेटेड हैं. हमें कोशिश करनी चाहिए कि हम अपने मीन्स में खुश रहने की कोशिश करें, जो हमारे पास है उसमें खुश रहने की कोशिश करें. इसका यह मतलब नहीं है कि हम मेहनत ना करें, इसका यह मतलब नहीं है कि हम एम्बिशन शो ना करें, लेकिन एम्बिशन शुड नॉट possess us. हम लोगों को चाहिए कि हमारी एम्बिशन हमारे ऊपर हावी ना हो जाए. जब हावी हो जाएगी, जब हम भागने लगेंगे किसी चीज के पीछे, तो फिर हम फ्रस्ट्रेट होंगे और उसकी वजह से हम खुश रहने में हमें मसाइल दरपेश आएंगे. इस छोटी सी बात के साथ आज की डिस्कशन, आज का सेशन शुरू करते हैं. पिछले लेक्चर में हमने डिस्कस किया था कि वो कौन से ऐसे ब्रॉड कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स हैं which can be applied to the design and construction of a training program to facilitate learning. उसमें हमने डिस्कस किया that employees, they need to have clear objectives, they need to have meaningful content, they need to practice, they need feedback, they learn from experiences, and they need to have properly coordinated training programs, etc. Today we are going to discuss some specificities of designing a training program. Those broad things were generally applicable to all kinds of training programs. Whereas, we need to see that in specific conditions, in specific situations, what characteristics, what factors must be present. अच्छा, उसके लिए सबसे पहली चीज जो हमें देखनी है वो ये है कि हमारी लर्निंग आउटकम क्या है. What do we want our trainees to learn? आपको याद होगा कि हमने कुछ लेक्चर्स पहले ट्रेनिंग आउटकम्स की बात की थी, और उसमें 5 तरह के ट्रेनिंग आउटकम्स को हमने डिफाइन किया था. वर्बल इंफॉर्मेशन, इंटेलेक्चुअल स्किल्स, कॉग्निटिव स्ट्रेटजीज, मोटर स्किल्स, and attitude change. So we have to see that what of these learning outcomes do we want out of a training program. According to that, we have to make sure that there are appropriate internal and external conditions applied to that learning outcome, applied to the acquisition of that learning outcome. What are now internal conditions and external conditions? Internal conditions they are the conditions that are within the trainee that are present before the learning process has taken place or while the learning process is taking place. So internal conditions में उनकी prerequisite knowledge, prerequisite skills, and their readiness for training that is involved. But for each kind of learning outcome, different kind of internal conditions are required. And then external conditions are the methods of instruction, the external conditions that are applied to the situation to facilitate a certain kind of learning outcome. So for each kind of a learning outcome, we are going to see and explore what internal and external conditions must be met. Pehli baat, verbal information. In verbal information, you want people to know the labels, facts, or propositions. So information learn करना objective होता है. उसके लिए क्या internal conditions required है? First is previously learned knowledge and verbal information. So if you want people to learn some verbal information, they should have the prerequisite knowledge that is required to learn that higher level of verbal information. And second internal condition that is required, that is strategies for coding information into the memory. So the person should have some kind of a strategy, some kind of an experience, how that information will be coded into his or her mind. So these are the internal conditions that are required to learn verbal information. Now, the external conditions that the instructors or trainers, they can create, they can use to facilitate the learning of verbal information, they are, first of all, repeated practice. That if people are learning verbal information, they should repeat it again and again in their memory. That is how they are going to memorize that. Then there should be meaningful chunks. That the material should be divided in a meaningful manner, in meaningful divisions, so that the memory, it can remember it in a smooth and easy flow. Then there should be advanced organizers. We discussed in the previous lecture what are advanced organizers. They are text, diagrams, graphs that help encode the information that is given to the trainees. So advanced organizers should be used when in maximum places, because of which people will be able to remember information more easily. And then there should be recall cues given, that hints or strategies provided that help person to recall a particular information that is stored in their memory. So all these things, repeated practice, meaningful chunks, and recall cues and advanced organizers, all these things should be provided so that verbal information can be learned and encoded into the long-term memory. Now, these are the internal and external conditions required for verbal information. Now, if you want to develop cognitive strategies, if that is learning outcome, for example, if you are dealing with customers, you need to apply, you need to use cognitive strategies for that. You need to decide that how am I going to deal with this particular customer? What is the query of this customer? What does this customer want? Is he here to purchase or return, or he is dissatisfied with the product, or what is the requirement of this person? So you need to use cognitive strategies. You have information in your mind, you have some practice of that, but you need to apply some mental cognitive strategies, how to react in that situation. So for this particular situation in which you want trainees to learn cognitive strategies, what should be the internal conditions for that? One is the recall of prerequisites. So recall of prerequisites means that For example, if you have to deal with a customer, the salesperson should know what kind of product will satisfy the requirement of this customer, or what kind of product can be offered to satisfy the requirement of this customer, or if the person is dissatisfied or unhappy with the purchase, how to satisfy that person, or what kind of solution can be offered. So all this information, this is the prerequisite of going through the next level of actually applying the strategy of deciding what should be done. So the person should have information about the products. The person should have information about what kind of solutions can be presented. So that is the recall of prerequisites. Then there should be similar tasks. Similar tasks that a person has been already doing, the learning outcome should be related to the same kind of task. It should not be a totally different task that you want them to learn. So that person must have had some minimal experience in customer service. In that case, you will be able to train that person for better customer service representation. And then strategies. So they should have mental strategies in their mind, so which can be used. So if this happens, if a customer wants a product, what is the strategy? If a person is dissatisfied, what is the strategy? So the strategies should be known. So these are the internal conditions that are required before the learning can take place. Then what are the external conditions that a trainer can create, the trainer should manipulate in the training program? The trainer, first of all, needs to describe the strategy. So there has to be verbal description of the strategy. What are you going to do in a particular situation, or how you can act in a particular situation? Then strategy demonstration. So you have to show them how to use that strategy. So there must be somebody, some role model who can show, who can demonstrate that this is how you are going to deal with these customers. The next external condition is practice with feedback. So after you have verbally stated the strategy to them, and then you have demonstrated the use of strategy, now they should be allowed to practice, and then feedback is given that this is how they have performed by using these particular strategies. And finally, the external condition for cognitive strategies is variety of tasks that provide opportunity to apply a strategy. So after they have practiced initially, then you give them variety of tasks in which they can apply the information and the strategies that they have learned to act according to the situation that is presented to them. So आप उनको मुख्तलिफ situations में उन strategies को apply करने के लिए practice करवाएं. So अगर आप उनको customer service की training दे रहे हैं, तो आप उनको मुख्तलिफ customers जो कि मुख्तलिफ किस्म के requirements के साथ आ रहे हैं, उनको उनके साथ deal करने का के लिए आप उनको train करें. So these are the external conditions that can be manipulated, that can be presented by the trainers to enhance the learning outcome of cognitive strategies. The third learning outcome is intellectual skills. Intellectual skills involves applying your previous knowledge to the new knowledge that you have learned. So intellectual skills, they involve practicing with the previous knowledge and the newly learned knowledge. So the external conditions that are required for learning intellectual skills, those are link between new and previously learned knowledge. So the trainer, the instructor should be able to show that what they are learning at this moment, that how does that link to the previously learned knowledge that they have. So that will help them develop their intellectual skills. Fourth kind of learning outcome is change of attitude. So change of attitude is a choice of action that a person wants to take. तो चेंज ऑफ एटीट्यूड में आपको मैं एक एग्जाम्पल ये देती हूँ कि अगर आप ये चाहते हैं कि आपके बच्चे नमाज पढ़ें तो उसके लिए क्या इंटरनल और एक्सटर्नल कंडीशंस रिक्वायर्ड हैं. इंटरनल कंडीशन तो ये रिक्वायर्ड है कि पहली बात मास्टरी ऑफ द प्री रेक्विजिट्स, कि नमाज उनको सिखानी, याद करवानी और पढ़ने का तरीका आना, ये प्री रेक्विजिट्स हैं और इसमें उनको एक्सपर्ट होना चाहिए, इसमें उनको इस स्किल को मास्टर कर लेना चाहिए. सो देयर शुड बी मास्टरी ऑफ प्री रेक्विजिट्स. दे शुड रिमेंबर, उनको मेमोराइज्ड होनी चाहिए, उनको तरीका आना चाहिए, उनको वुजू का तरीका आना चाहिए, और ये सब कुछ सिखाना पहला प्री रेक्विजिट है. लेकिन ये सब कुछ सिखाने से ये इंश्योर नहीं होता कि वो नमाज पढ़ने लग जाएंगे. Then the internal condition that is required is identification with the model. So if a parent or if a friend or if a relative is teaching them this thing, this religious ritual, there will be internal condition created for this learning. अगर वो मॉडल के साथ आइडेंटिफाई नहीं करेंगे, मॉडल जो कि उनसे ये कह रहा है कि नमाज पढ़नी चाहिए, अगर वो उसके साथ आइडेंटिफाई नहीं करेंगे, अगर वो उसके साथ रिलेट नहीं करेंगे, दे विल नॉट बी मोटिवेटेड टू चेंज देयर एटीट्यूड ऑफ डूइंग दिस रिलीजियस रिचुअल. And the third thing is there should be cognitive dissonance. When you want a person to change their attitude, they should be dissatisfied with their present situation. So अगर कोई नमाज नहीं पढ़ता तो उसको इस सिचुएशन से डिससैटिस्फाइड होना जरूरी है. अगर वो इस सिचुएशन से डिससैटिस्फाइड नहीं होगा, cognitive dissonance नहीं होगी. Cognitive dissonance is that internally you are dissatisfied with the situation of with the current situation or current state of your being. So अगर आप उससे dissatisfied नहीं होंगे, you will not go for the change in attitude. So there has to be cognitive dissonance in order to create the change in attitude. So अगर आप उनको employees को time management skills सिखा रहे हैं, they should be dissatisfied with their inefficient management of time. उनके जहन में ये डिससैटिस्फैक्शन, ये कॉग्निटिव डिसोनेंस होना जरूरी है कि वो इफेक्टिवली टाइम को मैनेज नहीं कर पा रहे, उनको टाइम को इफेक्टिवली मैनेज करना चाहिए. फिर वो टाइम मैनेजमेंट की ट्रेनिंग जब आप उनको देंगे तो वो उससे कुछ लर्न करके जाएंगे और फिर वो अपने टाइम को इफेक्टिवली और एफिशिएंटली मैनेज करेंगे. So there has to be cognitive dissonance. That is the most important internal condition in order to create the change in an attitude. Now, when you want a person to change their attitude, what should be the external conditions that are required? External conditions that are required, number one is demonstration by a model. So, हम वही example देखते हैं. अगर नमाज पढ़ने की आपने तरगीब देनी है तो उसके लिए जरूरी है कि घर में पेरेंट्स, बहन भाई, बड़े बहन भाई, रिलेटिव्स नमाज खुद पढ़ते हों. अगर नहीं पढ़ते होंगे तो आप उनको सिखा देंगे, सब प्री रेक्विजिट्स पूरे कर देंगे, तो दे विल नॉट बी मोटिवेटेड टू डू दैट बिकॉज डिमॉन्स्ट्रेशन नहीं हो रही. मॉडल इज नॉट डिमॉन्स्ट्रेटिंग दैट एटीट्यूड हिमसेल्फ. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर कोई कह रहा है कि आपको स्मोकिंग छोड़ दें और वो खुद बैठ के स्मोकिंग कर रहा है, तो आप उस बंदे की बात कैसे मानेंगे? आप कहेंगे तुम तो खुद स्मोकिंग कर रहे हो, तुम मुझे क्यों समझा रहे हो? सो द पर्सन हैज टू डिमॉन्स्ट्रेट दैट बिहेवियर हिमसेल्फ. Then there has to be a positive learning environment. So there has to be an environment of religious belief, of religious followership in a house. वो positive learning environment आप provide करेंगे तो फिर आप अपने बच्चों को तरगीब दे सकेंगे कि कोई नमाज पढ़े या religious rituals को follow करे. Then there should be strong message from a credible source. So किसी भी attitude को change करने के लिए ये required है कि strong message दिया जाए ऐसी सोर्स के थ्रू जो कि क्रेडिबल है. सो इस सिचुएशन में नमाज की तरकीब देने के लिए आप उनको कुरान शरीफ का रेफरेंस देंगे, अहादीस का रेफरेंस देंगे कि देखें ये आपको इस क्रेडिबल सोर्स से ये इतना स्ट्रॉन्ग मैसेज मिल रहा है कि ये काम करना चाहिए, ये काम बहुत ज़रूरी है और इस काम को करने का ये सवाब है, ये फ़ायदा है, और नहीं करने का ये नुकसान है, ये मसाइल दरपेश आ सकते हैं. एंड फाइनली reinforcement. So in order to change the attitude of a person, if a person changes that attitude, then there should be reinforcement given. Or if that person does not change an attitude, then punishment should be given. So some kind of reinforcement. So अगर आपने ये सब कुछ प्रोवाइड किया है, अगर आपने एनवायरनमेंट भी प्रोवाइड किया है, अगर आप खुद भी डिमॉन्स्ट्रेट कर रहे हैं, आपने सिखा भी दिया है नमाज पढ़ना, और फिर भी नहीं पढ़ने की कोशिश कर रहे, तो आप नेगेटिव रीइंफोर्समेंट या पनिशमेंट के थ्रू उनको एनफोर्स कर सकते हैं. या ये कि अगर वो करना शुरू कर देते हैं, अगर वो एटीट्यूड चेंज कर लेते हैं, तो फिर आप उनको किसी तरह से पॉजिटिवली रीइंफोर्स करें, आप उनको कोई रिवॉर्ड दें, आप उनको अप्रिशिएट करें, रिकग्नाइज करें कि यस दे हैव बीन दे आर डूइंग समथिंग दैट यू वांटेड देम टू डू. सो reinforcement is an important external condition of changing a person's attitude. So these are the internal and external conditions that are required to change an attitude, that are required to achieve the learning outcome of changing an attitude. And the last learning outcome is motor skills. So motor skills that requires muscular action. So you want people to learn some physical activity, something that requires physical coordination. Now, what should be the internal conditions for that? That there should be recall of part skills. So when you want a person to learn a particular motor skill, for example, अगर आप किसी को swimming करना सिखा रहे हैं, तो swimming करने में various उसके parts hain. Swimming is divided into various parts. One is that a person should be able to hold their breath for a certain time, and then they should be able to float, then they should be able to do their hand movement, then kicking in the water. तो पहले जब आप स्विमिंग सिखाना शुरू करते हैं, तो आप उनको ये सब अलग अलग सिखाना शुरू करते हैं. पहले आप उनको किकिंग सिखाना शुरू करते हैं, फिर आप उनको अंडर वाटर लेकर जाते हैं, उनके पानी का फेयर निकालने की कोशिश करते हैं, फिर आप उनको हैंड मूवमेंट सिखाते हैं, फॉरवर्ड मूवमेंट सिखाते हैं, बैकवर्ड मूवमेंट सिखाते हैं. तो ये सब पार्ट मूवमेंट्स हैं. या फॉर एग्जांपल जब आप ड्राइविंग करना सीखते हैं, तो उसमें देयर आर डिफरेंट पार्ट्स ऑफ मूवमेंट. सो यू हैव गॉट टू steer the steering wheel, you've got to change the gears, you've got to coordinate your foot movement, you've got to coordinate your eyes and your other senses. So you've got to coordinate all these things. So these things are, first of all, they are made to learn in parts. So the internal condition which is required to learn a motor skill is that the person is able to recall the part skills. And then there should be some coordination programming in that person's mind that can coordinate all these part skills into a complete whole. And what are the external conditions that can be applied to enhance the outcome of learning for motor skills? One is, the most important is practice. So the more a person will practice the motor skill, the more a person will practice swimming or driving or climbing, the more they will be expert in that. The second thing that is the external condition, that is demonstration. That the trainer should demonstrate how to conduct that particular action. And then gradual decrease of external feedback. So initially you should give them feedback, you should tell them how they are doing, but as they progress on improving their skill, there should be gradual decrease of feedback, gradual decrease of reinforcement. That is how the external conditions can be manipulated to make people learn motor skills. So you have seen that there are different kind of external conditions and internal conditions that are required for each kind of a learning outcome. So, according to the learning outcome that is required out of a training program, the external conditions and then the training content and the training site should be designed, and the training content should be implemented according to each of the requirement. So, the specific aspects that are important for designing effective training programs, they involve 3 dimensions. These dimensions are, number 1, selecting and preparing the training site. Now we are coming to the specificities of designing the training program. So, selecting and preparing the training site that you are going to use, the facility that you are going to use for the training. How are you going to select that, and how are you going to prepare that for training to be more effective? Then, selecting the trainers or selecting the instructors. What considerations should be kept in mind while selecting the trainers for a particular training program? And then, what can we do to create a learning environment? In that, how to create the seating arrangement, or how to get the employees more involved into the training program. So, how to create a learning environment, a learning setting. So, पहले बात देख लेते हैं कि how to select and prepare the training site. To select and prepare the training site, there should be 3 considerations in the minds of the selectors. Number 1, it should be comfortable and accessible, because you don't want people to be uncomfortable, or it shouldn't be a place which is difficult to access. किसी को अगर 50 किलोमीटर ड्राइव करके ट्रेनिंग के लिए आना पड़ेगा तो वो 50 किलोमीटर ड्राइव करते हुए थक जाएगा, उसने ट्रेनिंग क्या करनी है? या अगर आपका कंफर्टेबल एनवायरनमेंट नहीं होगा, गर्मी बहुत होगी, ठंड बहुत होगी, तो उसमें लर्निंग आपकी मुतासिर होगी. Then it should be quiet, private and free from interruptions. अगर आप प्रोडक्शन फैसिलिटी, प्रोडक्शन फ्लोर के साथ वाले कमरे में ट्रेनिंग रख लेंगे, जिसमें प्रोडक्शन की नॉइज, प्रोडक्शन का जो शोर है वो कॉन्टिन्यूसली ट्रेनीज को डिस्टर्ब करता रहेगा, तो उससे भी आपकी ट्रेनिंग जो है वो मुतासिर होगी. तो कोई ऐसी जगह होनी चाहिए जो कि जहां क्वाइटनेस हो, जो कि प्राइवेट हो, एंड विच डज नॉट हैव एनी इंटरप्शंस. सो अगर आप उनके मेन हॉल में, अगर आप उनके मेन ऑफिस फ्लोर के ऊपर ट्रेनिंग साइट अरेंज कर लेंगे, तो वहां पे कॉन्टिन्यूस इंटरप्शंस होती रहेंगी, वहां पे लोग आते रहेंगे, वहां पे कस्टमर्स आते रहेंगे, तो आपकी ट्रेनिंग डिस्टर्ब होगी और इंटरप्शंस होंगी. सो इट शुड बी क्वाइट and private and free from interruptions. Then there should be sufficient space for trainers to move easily around. It offers enough room for trainees to have adequate workspace and has good visibility for trainees to see each other, the trainer, and any visual displays or examples that will be used in training. So it should be spacious enough so that trainees, they can move around, they can see each other, and they can easily see the content that is being displayed. They can see the instructor, they can see the trainer, and they should be able to see all those meaningful things that will be presented to them during the training program. So it should be spacious, and it should be spaced accordingly, according to the requirement of the training program. So these are the considerations that you have to keep in mind while selecting the training site. Now, the specific details that you have to consider while selecting and preparing the training room. The first thing is noise. You have to check for the noise of heating arrangement or air conditioning, or noise from the corridor, or noise from areas around you. So, आपको ये देखना है कि शोर ज़्यादा नहीं होना चाहिए. इवन एयर कंडीशनिंग सिस्टम्स का, हीटिंग अरेंजमेंट का भी शोर इतना नहीं होना चाहिए कि वो आपकी ट्रेनिंग को, आपकी लर्निंग एक्टिविटी को डिस्टर्ब करे. देन यूज ऑफ कलर्स. Colors are very important in creating a learning environment. Colors are very important in affecting the mood and the state of a person's mind. So आपने पढ़ा होगा, सुना भी होगा कि blue and green colors, they are very conducive to learning. Blue and green colors, they are warm, they are life-giving colors. Blue पानी का color है, green plants का color है, green or blue is the color of our planet. And then orange and yellow, these are also warm colors. They facilitate learning. In these kind of colors, the mental processes, they are enhanced. Whereas if you use white or variations of white, that becomes cold and sterile, in which the mind gets frozen, the mind gets dull. So white and it's very impersonal. There is no warmth in white. There is no expression in white. So white is also not suggested. And blacks and browns, these colors, they tighten the situation, they reduce the space. Black से जगह कम हो जाती है. Blacks और browns से जगह, जितनी जगह होती है वो थोड़ी दिखती है, कम दिखती है. And it becomes fatiguing. If you make people sit in a black room for a long time, or where the dominant color is black, they will get tired more quickly and more easily. So it is suggested to use warm colors, warm and pastel colors of blue, green, or light and orange variations. The third consideration is room structure. How would you feel in a triangular room? Or how would you feel in a very long room that looks like a corridor? Obviously, you will feel uncomfortable. अगर आप अपने आप को इमेजिन करें कि आप एक ट्रायंगुलर रूम में बैठे हैं या आप एक लंबे रेक्टेंगुलर रूम में बैठे हैं, उसमें लर्निंग एनवायरनमेंट नहीं क्रिएट हो सकेगा. मुश्किल होगा कंसंट्रेट करना. जो एम्प्लॉयज सबसे पीछे बैठे हुए होंगे उनके लिए सबसे आगे देखना, कोऑर्डिनेशन नहीं हो सकेगी. सो इट इज सजेस्टेड टू यूज रूम्स दैट आर मोर स्क्वायर इन शेप. So square rooms are the best rooms for learning and training purposes. So it's easy for the trainees to see, hear, and identify with the trainer and identify with the discussion. Another consideration is lighting. You have to make sure that lighting is appropriate. Most of the lighting should be fluorescent lighting. जो fluorescent lights होती हैं, majority of the light should come from fluorescent lights, and incandescent lights should be used with dimmers. So जो incandescent lights हैं वो dimmers के साथ इस्तेमाल करें ताकि जब आप presentation दे रहे हैं या multimedia के ऊपर कुछ show कर रहे हैं तो उस वक्त आप उन lights को dim कर दें. Then wall and floor covering. Imagine if you are sitting in a training room where there are 10 different charts that do not relate to the training content. What will happen? Where will your attention go? While you are listening to a lecture or while you are listening to a discussion, you may start looking at the chart and try to see what is depicted in this chart. So there shouldn't be anything, any picture or any chart or any covering on the wall which distracts the person. So walls के ऊपर सिर्फ वो कंटेंट होना चाहिए, वो चार्ट्स या वो डायग्राम्स होनी चाहिए which are related to your training content. And then it is suggested that the floor covering should, the carpeting should be used for floor covering because it makes the environment more comfortable and more personal. If floor covering, if carpeting is not there, it looks more impersonal and a learning environment is not created. So it is suggested that carpets should be used in floor coverings. Then meeting room chairs. These chairs should have wheels and swivels so that they can rotate and they can move around, so that people, if they want to move around, they need to talk to somebody, they should be able to, collaboration should be facilitated. And they should be comfortable, that in a way that support the lower part of the body, because people have to sit for longer time, and if the chairs will be uncomfortable, they will find it discomforting, and obviously जब वो उनको discomfort हो रही होगी, तकलीफ हो रही होगी बैठने में, तो उनका ध्यान लर्निंग की तरफ नहीं जाएगा, फिर उनको अपनी डिस्कम्फर्ट की तरफ उनकी अटेंशन ज्यादा डाइवर्ट हो जाएगी. फिर आपने देखना है कि किसी सरफेस से ग्लेयर तो नहीं आंखों में पड़ी. सो यू हैव टू सी दैट ग्लेयर फ्रॉम टीवीज, मॉनिटर्स और फ्रॉम surfaces that is not distracting or that is not getting into the mind, getting into the eyes of the trainees. So you have got to check the glare. और अगर आप external lighting use कर रहे हैं, अगर आपके training room में windows हैं, तो आपको ये भी देखना है कि अगर आप उनको cover नहीं कर रहे, अगर आप उनको close नहीं कर रहे blinds को, तो दिन के कौन से ऐसे time में sunlight ऐसे point पे है जहां से glare create हो रही है. So you have to make sure that you close the blinds at that time. Another thing is how high should be the ceiling. So a training room should have, it is suggested that a 10-foot ceiling is preferable. Then there should be sufficient electrical outlets so that people can plug in their, for example, their laptops, or if they have got to charge their mobile phones, क्योंकि आजकल की जिंदगी में हर चीज आपकी तो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक है और उसको चार्जिंग की जरूरत है. सो ऐसे पॉइंट्स आपके, तो सजेस्टेड ये है कि 6 फीट्स के ऊपर आपके इलेक्ट्रिकल आउटलेट्स जरूर होने चाहिए. और फिर ट्रेनर के पास भी इलेक्ट्रिकल आउटलेट्स सफिशिएंट क्वांटिटी में मौजूद होने चाहिए, सो दैट वो उसमें कंप्यूटर भी प्लग कर लें, और उसके अलावा भी अगर कोई इक्विपमेंट, टीवी इक्विपमेंट है या डीवीडी प्लेयर है, जो उन्होंने इक्विपमेंट है वो उसके अंदर. सो सफिशिएंट आउटलेट शुड बी प्रोवाइडेड टू द ट्रेनर सो दैट दे कैन प्लग इन ऑल दोज रिसोर्सेज ओवर देयर. एंड फाइनली व्हाट द ट्रेनर्स हैव टू मेक श्योर इज द acoustics ऑफ द ट्रेनिंग रूम. acoustics इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. आपने देखा होगा कि कुछ कमरे ऐसे होते हैं जिसमें आवाज बहुत गूंजती है, और कुछ कमरे ऐसे होते हैं जिसमें आवाज दब जाती है. सो यू हैव टू मेक श्योर that the acoustics of the room are appropriate, जिसमें आवाज ना बहुत ज्यादा गूंजे ना बहुत ज्यादा दबे, आवाज ठीक तरह से सुनाई दे. और उसके लिए आप मुख्तलिफ जगहों पर बैठ के मुख्तलिफ लोगों को बोलने के लिए कहें. 3 से 4 लोगों को आप बोलने के लिए एक कमरे में प्रैक्टिस करके देखें कि मुख्तलिफ किस्म की आवाजें उस कमरे में किस तरह से रिस्पॉन्ड करती हैं. सो सिर्फ एक आवाज को टेस्ट करके ना देखें, बल्कि 3 या 4 आवाजों को टेस्ट करके देख लें कि किस तरह से वो आपके कमरे में रिस्पॉन्ड करती हैं. तो किसी की पिच हाई होती है, किसी की टोन हाई होती है, किसी की आवाज ज्यादा भारी होती है. तो आप ये देख लें कि मुख्तलिफ किस्म की आवाजें उस कमरे के अंदर किस तरह से रिस्पॉन्ड करती हैं, और यू हैव टू मेक श्योर दैट द acoustics आर appropriate of that room so that people are able to communicate properly in that room. Another important aspect of designing your training site is selecting the seating arrangement. Now you would say seating arrangement की ऐसी कौन सी बात है, बिठा दें, आप किसी तरह से भी बिठा दें. बात ट्रेनिंग कंटेंट की है, जो सिखा रहे हैं, जो स्किल सिखा रहे हैं. But no, your seating arrangement makes a lot of difference in what kind of learning outcome do you require, what kind of interaction is going to take place during the training program. So there are 4 different kinds of seating arrangements which can be used to design a training program. You can see that one is the fan type seating arrangement, the other one is classroom type seating arrangement, the third one is conference type seating arrangement, and the fourth one is horseshoe seating arrangement. Now for fan type seating arrangement, you can see that in a fan type seating arrangement, there is an instructor at the head of the room, and there are various desks arranged in a fan type arrangement around that, and people are sitting in a collaborative way around those desks. Fan type seating arrangement, it allows trainees to see from any point in the room, and they can easily switch from listening to a presentation to practice in groups, and trainees can communicate easily with everyone in the group. So ये जो fan type seating arrangement है, इसमें आप देख रहे हैं कि जो trainees हैं वो किसी भी जगह से किसी भी पॉइंट को कमरे में देख सकते हैं. सो अगर आपको डिफरेंट किस्म की डिस्कशंस करवानी है, अगर आपको इन डिफरेंट ग्रुप्स के लोगों को प्रेजेंटेशंस करवानी है, तो ये अगर ग्रुप नंबर 1, जैसे कि आपने देखा डायग्राम के अंदर, ग्रुप नंबर 1 से कोई एम्प्लॉय प्रेजेंटेशन करेगा, ग्रुप नंबर 2 से करेगा, 3 से करेगा, तो सारे लोग, सारी कम्युनिटी उनको देख सकती है. सो एनीबडी कैन सी एनीबडी फ्रॉम a point in this kind of a seating. Then people can easily switch from listening to presentation and to practice. तो आप ये देख रहे हैं कि इसमें अरेंजमेंट इस तरह से हुआ हुआ है कि अगर इंस्ट्रक्टर लेक्चर दे रहा है तो सब लेक्चर भी सुन सकते हैं. फिर अगर प्रेजेंटेशन हो रही है, उन छोटे स्मॉल ग्रुप्स के अंदर से कोई एक प्रेजेंटर उठ के प्रेजेंटेशन दे रहा है तो सब उसको भी देख सकते हैं. और फिर अगर उनसे कहा जाए कि अब आपने किसी चीज को प्रैक्टिस करना है, किसी स्किल को प्रैक्टिस करना है, तो ये छोटे ग्रुप्स में डिवाइड होकर आपस में प्रैक्टिस भी कर सकते हैं. सो दे कैन इजीली डू ऑल दीज थिंग्स इन दिस फैन टाइप ऑफ सीटिंग एनवायरमेंट. देन द सेकेंड टाइप ऑफ सीटिंग अरेंजमेंट इज classroom seating arrangement. Classroom seating arrangement that is useful if training primarily involves knowledge acquisition with lecture and audiovisual presentation being the primary training method. Now, if you want people to listen to lectures, if there is only audiovisual presentation given to them, then a classroom seating arrangement is appropriate, where everybody can easily see the instructor, can easily see the audiovisual material being presented, being displayed. And if you do not require people to interact with each other, to collaborate with each other, or to get into groups to practice, a classroom seating arrangement is more appropriate. The third type of seating arrangement, that is the conference type seating arrangement. If training emphasizes total group discussion with limited presentation and no small group interaction, then a conference type seating arrangement is preferred. You can see in the slide that in a conference type seating arrangement, there is no instructor. So this is a seating arrangement in which total group discussion is required. So people are getting together to discuss, and everybody is contributing at the same level. There is no instructor of this kind of a training environment. And there is no small group interaction as well. Everybody is going to be contributing at the same time. So people don't have to divide into small groups in order to work on various practices or assignment. In that situation, a conference type seating arrangement is more appropriate. And finally, a horseshoe seating arrangement is appropriate where there is total group discussion required as well as external instruction. So you can see in the slide that there is an instructor at the head of the class, and the rest of the trainees, they are sitting in an horseshoe arrangement in which they can involve in total group discussion, and when the instructor gives some instructions or gives some lecture or gives some points, they can direct their attention to that instructor. So horseshoe seating arrangement में आप total group discussion भी कर सकते हैं, यानी आपके जो trainees involved हैं वो इकट्ठे मिलके total group discussion यानी सारा group मिलके discussion भी कर सकता है और instructor की बात भी सुन सकता है. Whereas conference type seating arrangement में सिर्फ total group discussion हो सकती है और इंस्ट्रक्टर इंस्ट्रक्शन नहीं दे सकता, वो अरेंज करना कॉन्फ्रेंस टाइप सीटिंग अरेंजमेंट में मुश्किल होगा. सो ये आपकी रिक्वायरमेंट पे डिपेंड करता है कि आप किस किस्म की इंस्ट्रक्शन दे रहे हैं और किस किस्म की एक्टिविटी करा रहे हैं. अगर आप ग्रुप एक्टिविटी करा रहे हैं जिसमें आपको कोलैबोरेशन भी चाहिए, आपको इंस्ट्रक्शन भी चाहिए, तो फैन टाइप सीटिंग अरेंजमेंट बेहतर है. अगर आप सिर्फ इंस्ट्रक्शन दे रहे हैं और आपको कोलैबोरेशन नहीं चाहिए तो उसमें क्लासरूम सीटिंग अरेंजमेंट बेहतर है. अगर आपको सिर्फ डिस्कशन चाहिए तो फिर कॉन्फ्रेंस टाइप सीटिंग अरेंजमेंट बेहतर है. और अगर आपको डिस्कशन भी चाहिए जो कि टोटल ग्रुप डिस्कशन है, छोटे ग्रुप्स में नहीं है, और साथ में इंस्ट्रक्शन भी चाहिए, देन हॉर्सशू सीटिंग अरेंजमेंट इज मोर अप्रोप्रिएट. सो दिस इज एन इम्पॉर्टेंट एलिमेंट ऑफ डिजाइनिंग योर ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम एज वेल. फिर आपको जो कंसिडरेशन जहन में रखनी है, जो आपको सिलेक्शन करनी है, दैट इज द सिलेक्शन ऑफ appropriate trainers for your training program. There are many choices and there are a number of considerations that have to be kept in mind while choosing your trainers. The first preference is always professionals and expert trainers or consultants that can be hired for the training program. But you have to see whether you have the budget for that, or you have to see whether you have your own in-house experts that may be able to do the job in a better way. So whether you want to choose trainers from outside, whether you want to hire professionals or training experts or consultants from outside, or you want to employ in-house experts. But you have to make sure that wherever the trainers are coming from, they should be expert in their area and they should also have sufficient experience in training. These are the two prerequisites that must be there, that they must be expert in their area and they should have sufficient experience in training. If you want to employ managers or employees for the purpose of training, then you may want them to complete a train the trainers program. आपने ट्रेन द ट्रेनर्स प्रोग्राम के बारे में जरूर सुना होगा. ट्रेन द ट्रेनर्स प्रोग्राम it serves the purpose to enhance the training skills of people who already have the subject expertise. So उनके पास content knowledge तो होता है, यानी उनके पास skills, expertise और knowledge जरूर होता है, लेकिन they may not have appropriate training skills. So training skills develop करने के लिए you may need to improve their presentation and communication skills. You may need to give them information about the various learning steps that are involved in training. And you may want them to learn how to develop effective training and lesson plans. So Train the Trainers program will equip them with these skills that they are lacking in order to conduct effective training. You may also want them to acquire a specific certification which verifies that they have been trained or they have been now skilled to conduct training programs. But there are many advantages of using managers and employees for your training programs rather than hiring people from outside. So if you use your own managers and employees for the purpose of training, what are the advantages of that? It may help increase the perceived meaningfulness of the content, because आपके अपने employees या आपके अपने managers ही आपको training दे रहे हैं, तो आपको ये लगेगा, trainees को ये लगेगा कि वो जो सीख रहे हैं वो ज्यादा मीनिंगफुल है, बजाय इसके कि कोई बाहर से बंदा आए, बाहर से ट्रेनर आए और आके सिखाए. मीनिंगफुलनेस कैन बी एनहांस्ड बाय एम्प्लॉइंग managers and employees for the training program. Then because they understand company's business, they tend to make the training content more directly applicable to the trainees' work. चूंकि एम्प्लॉयज और मैनेजर्स ट्रेनिंग करवा रहे हैं और वो बिजनेस को समझते हैं, बिजनेस को जानते हैं और वो उस सब प्रोसेस में से खुद भी गुजर चुके हैं, उन्होंने वो सब काम खुद भी किए हुए हैं, इसलिए वो ट्रेनिंग कंटेंट को ज्यादा प्रैक्टिकल और एप्लीकेबल बना सकते हैं, बजाय इसके कि कोई ट्रेनर या कंसल्टेंट आके ट्रेनिंग करवाए. उनके पास ट्रेनिंग नॉलेज डेफिनेटली ज्यादा होता है, सब्जेक्ट नॉलेज ज्यादा होता है, लेकिन प्रैक्टिकल नॉलेज इतना नहीं होता. Whereas your employees and managers, they have the maximum practical knowledge about the actual situations that arise in your organization. It can also help to increase their support for training. That if the employees and managers, they are involved in the training themselves, they will be more supportive for this program. They will be more supportive for this activity because they are themselves involved in it. And finally, another advantage of employing managers and employees is that serving as trainers may also be rewarding if they are recognized by the company or if it contributes to their personal development plan. So they may value it. The managers who are involved in the training programs, they may value it because the company rewards it. If you remember the case of Trilogy University, the star performers of the organization used to come for the orientation program, and it served as a leadership development tool for the company. So जो लोग वहां आके instruction देते थे, वो उनके career development के लिए it was beneficial for them. So if the employees and managers are appropriately rewarded, they will value that for their career development, for their professional development. So these are the advantages of using employees or managers for as trainers in your training program. Then you can also use in-house experts, the people in your organization who are employed within the training department for the purpose of training and who are experts in their particular areas. But what you have to make sure that the in-house experts, they make the training content as concrete as possible. Let's say by showing examples or by giving cases or practice or practical application. Because the experts, they tend to become more abstractly involved in the subject, abstractly involved in the concepts rather than application. So जो ज़्यादा expert हो जाते हैं किसी subject के, वो content को ज़्यादा complex और abstract बना देते हैं और उनको लगता है कि क्योंकि उनको भी समझ आ रही है इसलिए बाकी सबको भी समझ आ जानी चाहिए. So you have to make sure that if you are using in-house experts, they make the training content as concrete as possible by examples and cases. So these are the few considerations that you have to keep in mind while choosing your trainers, while choosing your instructors. So today we have discussed that what are the specific elements of designing a training program, which came down to as specific things as the seating arrangement and selecting the room, the training room, and what are the internal and external conditions that are required for certain kind of learning outcomes, and how to choose your trainers, how to choose your training room, and so on and so forth. So these are the things that we have discussed today. Next time, we are going to discuss about how to create a learning environment and how to design a training program design. So today, we are going to conclude our discussion now. Until next time, take care. Allah Hafiz.